Kia ora, and welcome to Constellations and All That. I'm your host, Tracy Cartwright, and together we will be exploring the world of family constellations with facilitators and clients from around the world, looking at different perspectives and experiences in the work, having a cup of tea and just chatting with some friends around their experiences in constellations. We'd love for you to join us. I hope that you enjoy this series as much as I have loved making it. Kia ora everyone, welcome to Constellations and All That. Today we are flipping the switch on this episode and beautiful Antonia Kersting is going to interview me. It was a suggestion that she put out to me a little while ago, and so we're making this happen. So welcome Antonia. I'm going to
Thank
give
you
you the
so
floor
much.
and see where this goes to. It might be surprising for people.
Yeah, I'm so happy that we could make this happen. And when I was on your podcast a few months ago, I just love the way that you interviewed me, and I've enjoyed listening to the other episodes and listening to the little bits and pieces of your own story that have peeked through at different times. And I thought it'd be really fun for the listeners, to also get like kind of more like coherent story of Tracy, because you've lived an incredible life and you've had all these amazing experiences, and you're obviously a fantastic facilitator. So I thought it'd be really great to give you the floor today and get to know you and your journey with constellations a little bit more. So I'm really excited to be here and do this with you.
Great, I'm excited too. I call it a colourful life.
Lives make for the
Yeah,
best paintings, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's beautiful. I think we can dive right in. I would love to start with just a story of like when you attended your first constellation, and or like the first time you met constellation, and how was that experience for you?
It was in the early 20, around 2010, 11-ish, around somewhere around there. And my father had been diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Mm.
And this is a little bit of the backstory.
Mm.
So I had been taking him to hospital visits and stuff like that. I'd heard about constellations. Someone had been sharing information with me about it, and I didn't quite grasp the concept of it. And my dad, who bless his soul, he was really good at activating some big life-changing situations for me. He'd had an operation and they'd basically opened him up, closed him up, and said, go home and get your affairs in order. Now, all of us kids had come together, and it was an operation in a town that we didn't live in, so I had to transport him down there and stuff. And that was all cool. Standing around his bedside, my brothers left, my mum left with the boys, and my sister was standing there, and I'm standing on the other side of the bed. And he had tunnel vision, and he only saw her. And I've always known that I wasn't his favourite child. I was one of those children that he often went, what the have I got here?
Mm.
That's the description that family friends would say he would say about me. What have I got here? Anyway, he said some things to my sister around her being his favourite. Love you, you're my favourite. And my heart sunk. And I was like, for a moment, I got angry, and I wanted to just vanish. I wasn't angry with my sister. I was just angry with him because I had been doing all this stuff to be seen, and I wasn't being seen. And I shuffled around, and he looked at me, and the look on his face, the total guilt and I guess shame too of what he, well, not shame. I don't know what it was. There was this look, an exchange between us. I just left the room. And I was actually going later that day. I was flying from Auckland down to Wellington to go on what we call a wānanga, which was a healing weekend where I was to be using my healing gifts for a sort of a big free public event. So I bought myself a packet of cigarettes and I went down there angry and frustrated and lost. My little inner child rose up going,
Mm.
am I ever going to know if he loves me?
Mm.
Like he didn't even see me after through all of this. But it was, I mean, he was focused on himself. I get that too. And so that was perfect. I met a guy who was giving an explanation around constellations. He'd come from America and he was part of this event as well. And he gave a description around the work. And then he's like, does anyone want to work? And I'm sitting there and my hand had gone up in the air and I hadn't even noticed. I was just like all in amazement of it. And he goes, "Oh, Tracy." And I was like, "What?" Looking at my hand doing its own thing in the air. And so I got to sit in the hot seat and I could see. So when my parents had lost a couple of children, and then they had my sister, who was the miracle child because she survived, and then they had me, and I wasn't, it had been recommended that they didn't have any more kids, but I came along. There was so much tension and fractured energy between mum and dad, and I could see that. And I could see that there was hope for my relationship with my dad, and that it
Mm,
wasn't that he didn't love me, it was that he really couldn't see me. And it just made, I remember feeling like all this weight had fallen off me, and the heaviness and the burden of all of those things, because I've been holding on to this for all my life, really, because there was another story around early life stuff. But what it did was that I felt like I had a new zest for life. Felt
yeah.
like yeah, like I said, there was hope. And I
Yes.
was lucky that I got another 2 years with Dad, and we started to form a really beautiful relationship, a real beautiful connection. And I never told any of them that I'd done this constellation. But in that time, I started training and of going to workshops, and then started training. So it really just flipped my life.
Mm,
But when I was sitting in the hot seat after the constellation kind of, when you got that, you've had that big moment and you're sort of coming back into your body. And I remember hearing Spirit say to me, "This is what you've been waiting for. What you're here for.
I'm getting
You'll
goosebumps.
under,
Yeah.
yeah, you'll understand the work. You just got to learn the psychology." Because I had always, most of my life, well, all of my life actually, been working and seeing in the unseen realms. It was not understood by anyone, by within my family system, because they had a story around mental illness. So I was encouraged to self-medicate from a very, very, very young age, yeah,
Hmm.
with alcohol, and then later on, I turned to drugs, and yeah.
So in a way, constellations gave you that window, that outlet to maybe put a bit of a framework around the experiences that you
Mm,
already had been having, and maybe
absolutely.
a healthier outlet by the sounds of it.
I was sharing with someone just yesterday. Actually, I went for a walk with someone who's interested in coming training with me, and I said to them, if Constellations hadn't found me, I don't think I would be here because of all the turmoil that was going on in my mental health, my physical health, my self-destructive patterns. I think I would have taken myself out
Yeah.
some
Wow.
way, consciously or unconsciously.
I
Mm.
hear you. I really resonate with that. I've have a similar experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And, I guess this kind of leads me to my next question. So you started around 2010, 2011, and then you quite quickly got into the training aspect of it as well, right? And how have you noticed constellation change your life? I'm hearing already, obviously, this relationship with your dad that shifted, but how has that impacted your life? You're saying it's saved your life in a way. So what does that look like in a more concrete way?
I think the understanding of
Hmm.
also how much I've taken on, how
Mm,
much I was entangled in my parents' relationship, in their pain, because they
mm,
couldn't grieve particularly the first child that was lost, and how I was out of order in my family system. I was the youngest, trying to be one of my older siblings in their place. I don't give myself such a hard time because I
beautiful.
used to think everything was all, I was taking the weight of the world on. And I've learnt so much self compassion, but also a deeper compassion for others as well. And, like often my mum, I love my mum, I loved her so much. There were times when she could be really quite bitter and judgmental, and we all have times when we're feeling judgmental, right? But through constellations, I could see her pain.
Yeah.
And old me would have wanted to take it over, take it off her, and find a way to make her feel better. Yeah, through it, I learned to be able to leave it with her. And interestingly enough, she lived with us for the last 9 years of her life.
Wow.
So, and that was through there was a lot of growth and healing that happened in that time because she was in our house with us. And there were times when I would go and have a piece of work done, or I'd go to an intensive or something like that. And then I'd come home and I just wouldn't see her for days, even though we were in the same house and shared the same kitchen. I needed time to integrate, so it would just work out. It wasn't that I was hiding, it was just that. needed to integrate. It just didn't line up that we bumped into the kitchen to making a cup of tea or anything. And a deeper love for my family. They all suffered and they had their experiences, and, even for the perpetrators.
Yeah. So that's a field
Yeah.
that you know quite well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because I had a lot of that. There was a lot of perpetrators on me, and I also perpetrated as well. Didn't
Mm.
know any different. There are things that I regret. I see the patterns and I regret. I can't
Mm.
change it. I can only acknowledge it and take responsibility for it.
How has your, because you're talking about compassion for yourself, compassion for others, and having experienced quite a lot of abuse and trauma, including sexual trauma and abuse and assault, how have you found your relationship shifting, in dynamic with the perpetrators or the perpetrator?
It's not that I think, well, it's okay that you did that to me. It's that I had a deeper understanding of the bigger picture of things.
Beautiful. Hmm.
And this might sound a bit bizarre to some people, but I remember when certain things were happening between myself and my oldest brother, and I heard these words. It makes sense to me now, but at the time, because I was only young, I think I was about 17, that this things had happened over the years, but remember I was about 17. And I heard, this is happening, well, you're doing this for the family. It didn't make
Mm.
sense. It'll keep the family together. And I
Yeah,
was like, I remember going, what? At the time when things were happening and didn't understand it. I have had really bizarre messages at strange times when things have been happening and not understood, but later on realized. And when you think about now that I've learned constellations and understanding Hellinger's theory
mm,
around, siblings abuse, or even when there's maybe the father takes the daughter or the mother takes the son, it's a way of unconsciously holding this energy of the family together,
mm,
fulfilling what the parents haven't been able to resolve within themselves,
mm,
carrying that energy, and it's almost like that energetic thread of holding it together. So there
yeah,
was, and I understand that now, but at the time when I was 17, I'm just confirmed to me that I was a little bit crazy
I can
hearing
imagine.
that.
Yeah.
Because, that concept was so far between.
And I guess it is one of the more controversial topics, right, in constellations, and it can be really activating for people to frame it in this way. And I guess I've seen it in my own work, and I'm imagining you have too, because this is kind of an area that you specialize in as well with your clients. Is though that when that's acknowledged and voiced, how much relaxation that can actually bring to the system. And again, it's not about excusing what has happened or making it all right,
Mm.
or it's just about voicing sort of the orders and the facts, and through that
It
bringing.
was the understanding of
Mm,
that. Yeah,
mm,
absolutely what you're saying. Yeah, not giving an excuse, but understanding that in the deeper, the much bigger picture of the family soul,
mm-hmm,
there was a broken energy that needed mending. Yeah, I know my brother would remember this because he was usually pretty out of it
mm.
when these things were happening. And then that my response was to get out of it so that I could forget what was happening.
Makes sense, right? Because it's a quite
Yeah.
overwhelming experience.
Mm,
You know,
absolutely.
when we have that violation of the body in that way, right, there is often the easiest way to cope with that is to leave in one way or another, right? Through
Got
the,
really good at that.
do you find it easier now to stay?
Yeah, yeah. It was a lot of practice. Yeah, I very rarely leave myself now, but it was just I look at my mum and she would do it. I look at my grandmother and she would do it. I don't know my great grandmother. She died the year I was born. When I look back now, I can see just how disassociated they all were and the patterns that run in there.
Go.
It's given me lots of resources. That's all I will say. I don't wish it upon anyone.
Mm,
However, I also know that I've got a lot of resources from it.
mm,
And,
yeah, there's within that there has been gifts as well. Yeah.
yeah.
I hear
And so far, touch wood, that I have, when I have shared, and I usually, and it's always in a very delicate and mindful way when I'm sharing that information with people around Harlinger's perspective on it. Most people agree.
yeah.
Most people underneath it all, and and it makes sense for them, and they kind of go, ah. And then we'll do this thing around, yeah, well, it wasn't what you did to me was painful and it wasn't okay.
Mm,
And, and then they have that understanding of the deeper picture for the family soul. It's like,
yeah, I hear that. Yeah, and that's the magic of constellations, right? That it's often like you're voicing these facts or you're voicing these orders, you're voicing these theories, and you can just see it kind of calm people's system down and they go, wow, yeah, that's resonating within me, like that people go, whoa, that's touched something. And that's I feel like that's how you often know you're onto some sort of deeper, more universal
mm,
truth, because otherwise
absolutely.
they would be more resistant to it, right?
And yeah, we do get, sometimes we're really, really angry and we've got to get through all of that. And
Cool.
it's fair enough too. Absolutely. There's so much pain involved in all of that. We all
Yeah.
have our own journey with this. Absolutely. But if I can use the resources that I've received from all of my experiences to support someone else to find their way to healing, then that's a blessing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And this is, from what I understand, this is also an area of like particular interest for you. You
Yeah.
really love supporting women who have experienced whether it's sexual assault or sexual abuse, sexual trauma of some description,
Mhm.
and helping them through constellations to kind of come back to themselves and find their voice. Do you want to speak into that a little bit?
Yeah, well, because like our yoni, so all of our female organs are connected to our throat
Mm,
as well, like they mirror each other. And often I see that women and men who've
mm,
had sexual trauma, they'll have something here. There'll be some sort of issue within the throat, the thyroid, or they keep their voice, or they've got thyroid and things going on around here anyway, front or back. Yeah, so I help people find their voice, whatever that looks like, whether
mm,
it's through sound, whether it's just through expression, just being able to speak it, because sometimes those things are so locked away within us that we haven't been able to tell anyone. You haven't been able to tell anyone what your father did to you, or what the neighbor's son did, or what
mm,
your cousin, yeah, or your brother, or your husband.
exactly. Or your friend.
My first marriage was pretty rough. And I remember that we lived in a little village, and most people were a bit scared of my husband for good reasons. And not my husband now, just to clarify that, my husband now is just so total opposite. But my first husband. And one day I happened to slip around saying, because it was a secret, the things that were happening at home. And I said something, and this person said to me, "That's not normal." And I was like, so he'd been raping me all night long. And I had just gotten into this pattern of that was normal. I didn't know until
Someone said
I,
that too.
I- till someone said to me, "That's not normal,"
Mm,
you know? And I was a mature woman. I was like probably, I was about 28 at the time, a couple of kids. I must have been younger than that because I was trying to get out the door at 28. Must have been about 27, 26. Anyway, you don't know. Some people we don't know what we don't know.
it's true.
Right? Growing up in a dysfunctional family, we don't know what we don't know. I thought I grew up in a normal family. Looking back, maybe not.
That relational aspect, sometimes having something reflected from somebody else can be enough for us to go, oh, hold on, maybe this is not right. And
Yeah,
to also confirm what we sometimes feel on the inside, but don't have the courage or the knowledge to affirm for ourselves.
absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
And a lot of things you see on TV too, the violence, the thing, it just becomes this programming.
And if you don't know any better, like, you can only do better when you know better, right? And that's what you were saying even before with your own patterns, where you say, I've been the perpetrator. And it's like, well, we can only acknowledge what has happened and do better in the future, right?
Yeah,
We can
absolutely.
care and like take accountability for what we've done and then do better in the future. But obviously we can't go back and change it. So
Absolutely. So helping people to find their voices also for me is around, I love to tone. I
yes.
was, in the last, maybe 6 or 7 years, I had this kind of like a voice activation happen through my with my friend Helen Barnes. It was sort of, it was sitting under there anyway. It was kind of bubbling
Yeah.
away, and she did this activation with me. And since then, when things are in the field, so that the energy is moving around, I'll see sound, and I'll sometimes I'll feel it, and I'm like, well, how am I supposed to translate that? So they show me in words, and then I'm like, oh, how am I going to get that sound out? But I just trust that that what comes through me will be the right sound, and I encourage people to use their voice to make sound and to be a little bit, you know,
Yeah.
what society doesn't deem the normal, but it makes your body feel really good. Humming, I hum on planes. I get
Mm.
people to chant and hum while we're having cacao. Find your
Yeah.
voice, let it out. People has been silenced for too long.
Yeah, beautiful. And it's so
Mm.
interesting when you say that. I get really curious because, I think what is really important for people to know is that different facilitators perceive the field in a different way.
Mm.
So that's why we facilitate in different ways, right? And so it's really curious for me to hear that for you, it has this aspect of sound and like that
Mm.
you're almost perceiving like the entanglements, I'm assuming, and like the maybe the way forward also through sound, and that you kind of the translator between what you're hearing and feeling to, supporting your clients to make those movements or make those sounds. So, yeah,
Mm.
can you explain that a little bit more? Because that's such a unique way of perceiving the
Well,
field.
like when I feel grief, because there was so much grief in my family system as well, and that when I feel grief, it just rises, and then I can bring that tone out, and that will usually, most often, allow someone to cry.
Beautiful.
They get to that frequency, just the floodgates can open up, and they can release what's been in there that they haven't been able to cry, or it's their grandmother's grief that that's been built up inside them, or their whatever their own. On that calling home, like those are things that I'm just thinking of that are sort of when you've got, so in New Zealand, when you go onto a marae, they karanga, they call you in, and it's like this. And even if you think of the Irish and the Scottish and potentially, I don't know how what the traditions are like in Germany, but I'm thinking of the Scandinavians as well. There's like the yawling where they're calling to the mountains, they're calling to the sea and to the land, to the ancestors. So there's a lot of that energy that comes through me. And sometimes it's just that the field is a little bit stuck, and I walk around and I drum as well. That was another thing that I did that my journey that I've shared here that I didn't want to do because I didn't want to be seen as a shaman. But I'll drum or I'll sound to break that frozen energy, to clear, to
Yeah.
make a movement within the field, because sometimes it's just so stuck in fear and flight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
So
two drums in the background there, so it's a safe space.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. The sound can be such a beautiful way to snap that stuckness and like those old patterns into something where it's like, oh gosh, maybe there is a different way, or like maybe there is a movement, or maybe there is a sound or something like that. So I really hear that.
Yeah, like if someone's, for example, if someone's been sexually assaulted,
Mm,
and I can let out the wail for them that was stuck there.
yeah,
And then I say, come on, let's do this sound together. Let's bring this out together. And they're able to do that. Then they are able to move forward as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I don't do it on all my constellations. It's just when it feels appropriate. And
Yeah, beautiful. And I know obviously you've been around for a long time, and you've it touched many lives already and been in many different constellations. I know you also do a lot of collaborations with other facilitators and
mm,
retreats and immersions. And I know you've just actually came from one. So was wondering if you wanted to talk about that a little bit.
yeah, beautiful. I've just been to Lombok with Susan Alschwager and Denise Warner.
Mm.
And amazing. Lombok is an island beside Bali. It's its
Mm.
own, it's a part of Indonesia. And we held a retreat called Yes to Life. And it was named after an exercise that I do that I call it Yes to Life. There was quite a few people that came along that had no idea about constellations, but they knew the different facilitators and they wanted to and be part of this experience. They had this calling, didn't know why. And for them, it was incredibly transformative. Stepping in and peeling back and letting go of their blocks, and they didn't have to worry about, Janice down the road hearing the story about what they've let go of because they were there in a retreat in a sacred space in a completely another part of the world.
Yeah, beautiful.
And we all three of us work very differently, but we it's a beautiful collaboration.
Yeah.
Was just the things that we all brought to it and the layers that we put on top of it. And yeah, it's been 18 months in the making. So and we're thinking we'll probably do another one. I love collaborating with people.
Mhm.
I think I have, what's the word? Without sounding blowy, I think
It's fine. It's
I think I'm pretty easy to work with generally. Like I can collaborate, I can sort of go with different styles and yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
I'm pretty flexible, I think. Yeah. And I love just the variety.
Yeah, I imagine it's lovely what you were saying, because that's the beauty about constellations, like everyone brings their own flavor. And so it's like you might get one answer from one facilitator and a very different answer from a different facilitator, but it kind of all leads to the same point. It's just different ways of
Mm,
getting there. And there might be a different layer over here and a different layer over there, that kind of gets peeled back by different people. And that's the beauty of the work.
absolutely. Yeah.
If you were going to explain constellations to somebody, I know you asked
Mhm.
the question of most people, how would you explain constellations to somebody who's never heard about it before?
So as you say, what I do is intergenerational trauma work, and I help you to find what is hidden behind a situation, maybe an issue or a health issue or a blockage, something that you're repeating, a pattern, going back, because a large chunk, 95% of what we are doing is we're repeating patterns. We
Mm,
create our own stuff. Obviously, so don't get that wrong. We do create our own stuff, but we also are unconsciously repeating patterns. So I help to pinpoint the origins of it. We
mm,
find ways of finding the right healing sentences, so invite the field to give us the words that are needed to be said, finding ways to release it so that we can be free of the entanglement and the
beautiful.
burdens that we're carrying.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm.
Yeah, very nice.
And sometimes I just say if I'm in a cheeky mood, I say a little bit like a psychic detective, but not. If I'm
Yeah,
feeling cheeky and I can't, I don't want to go into the full description.
yeah. I love that. Tracy,
Same, but different. It's not really psychic stuff. Sometimes people just go, oh, okay, yeah.
mm,
With a bit of psychology mixed in all of that, and it's not channeling, so
no, that's right. Yeah.
it's quite different. But that's just my get out of jail free card. Make it quick, and I have a bit of a sense of humor that yeah, I can be a bit cheeky sometimes. So
Yeah, that's great. It doesn't
mm,
always have to be so serious, right? Life's serious enough.
yeah, absolutely. I try to bring my humor in quite a bit into my constellations, not to dampen it down, but just more to ease the heaviness of it, really.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
not to be not respectful to the person.
I hear that. Yeah, I really hear
Yeah.
that. But it's
Mm.
sometimes, in those really dark places, it can be so lovely to have that kernel of light, because it's like we're also all more than our trauma, right? We are also
Absolutely.
more
Yeah.
available. And it's sometimes really good to be reminded of that, especially in those really heavy places.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite, like, or a story that's really stuck with you, or maybe something after our conversation that really has kind of come to your mind about constellation, or a constellation story you'd really like to share?
Well, there's so many. We kind of touched on this earlier, before we started recording. What would I say? And one that's popping up, which is totally unrelated to anything that we've talked about so
Perfect.
far. One that I did for a dog.
Oh, okay. Tell
I
me more.
know. And this lady said, "Can you do a constellation for my dog?" And I'm like, "What the? How am I going to do this?" And I was like, "Oh, okay," because this was quite early on in my learnings. And she had a dog that had been used by a gang
Hmm.
as a bait dog. Do you know what that means? Yeah. So it's been mauled quite a lot, and it was deemed a vicious breed, but she'd been given permission by the SPCA to take the dog, and because she had quite a bit of experience with dogs. Anyway, he was quite anxious, and she had 5 acres of land, and he had free range of the property, the whole thing, like there was a big fence around, it was fenced enough that it was fine. She said, but he's really anxious and he barks a lot, and we go out and he kind of people are afraid of him. And she said, but he's the loveliest dog. Like her little dog sort of ruled the roost, and this big dog had this thing going on. So we did a constellation where I put in someone to represent him, someone to
Mhm.
represent his canine mother and father, one person to represent his litter mates, so his family of origin, and then and that helped. That kind of helped calm him down a bit. And then I put in the perpetrators
Mm.
because they're part of his system, and they were there in the earliest parts of his life, so had a big part in his system. And then also the ones who rescued him. So
Mm.
that's those. And that actually calmed him right down as well. And
Mm.
then the person who was representing had this thing where like there's just too much. So he had 5 acres of land that he could roam free on, but it was too much.
Yeah.
For him, there was no boundary, and he was just on high alert all the time. So the owner, we were talking about, bringing a fence in, fencing it in so that even
Mm.
if it's an electric fence, to bring it in so that he only has a small area. And just in that conversation of bringing in the boundaries,
Wow.
the representative just like was really relaxed, and things
Incredible.
started to move and evolve. And there were a few other things that happened. I can't quite remember. But the next day, I got a message from the owner. She said, I don't know if it's just my imagination, but by the time I got home, the dog was so relaxed. When I came home, he was he just seemed like a different dog. Like obviously animals don't have that the bias or anything like
Cognition.
that they've got to work through. And then she took the dog out to a very busy area where there were like jet skis and kids on scooters and stuff like that. And dog was really calm. He wasn't sort of like pulling on the lead and lunging, and she had people coming up to her and saying, "Oh, what a beautiful dog. Can I pet your dog?" She said that had never, ever happened before.
Wow. That's huge.
So, yeah, constellated a dog, and I didn't even know that you could do that sort of thing. I've also done other animals as well
Beautiful.
since then. And then there was another one. It wasn't my constellation. It was one that I was a witness of. A
Mhm.
woman who had been feeling suicidal all of her life. She'd attempted many times, and it just was really overwhelming for her. And what it turned out was that her mother had been pregnant with her on the boat from Holland to New Zealand, and but her mother's heart was still in Holland, her
Mm.
first true love.
Wow.
And she'd been jilted at the altar, so the mother had married someone who came along and got on a boat and never went back to Holland. So, and after that, there was this sense of freedom. And she said, for the first time, I don't have that weight.
Wow.
Yeah.
I get goosebumps when you say that. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
The
Yeah.
weight, that grief and that sense of not wanting to be here, which was her
Mm.
mother's.
Yeah.
Mm.
But she had taken it on.
Yeah, totally.
Loyalty,
Mm.
as we
Yeah. I
do.
mean, that was a really condensed version of what had happened, but just remember that one stuck with me, really stuck with me.
So beautiful.
For me, having had so much physical sexual trauma, that my body had a lot of things going on over the
Mm.
years in the feminine ways, and did a constellation around my uterus and the excessive bleeding that I was doing, and found this need to be connected. And it was referring to the mother. I remember feeling a little bit confused at the time, not fully understanding this, because it
Mhm.
didn't feel like my mother.
Mhm.
And my representative was just like lying flat down on Mother Earth. It makes sense to me now. So in New Zealand and Aotearoa, we meet the whenua is the land of where you come from, and the whenua is also the name for the placenta.
Beautiful.
So
Yeah.
the connection there. So over the years since that happened, that was about 6 years ago. And I do a lot of practicing just lying on the grass
Mhm.
or even lying on the floor and going beyond the
Mhm.
floor and really connecting down into the womb of the mother.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like the
Yeah.
magic of the constellations that sometimes it does take a little bit to drop in, right? And you go, oh my God, that's what that was. Now I know. Now it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it did take a little one. That one I kind of went away going, oh, that was beautiful. I don't know what happened, but it was beautiful. Felt good.
Yeah.
And then over the years, and because for about 3 years, there were just things dropping in, and I go, oh, that's what that meant. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Tracy, it's been an absolute delight chatting with
Thank
you.
you.
And
Yeah.
we might even need a part two. We've just scratched the surface.
We have just scratched the surface, and I really don't mind sharing my story because I know that it's going to help someone. Someone will listen to this, and maybe it will invite them to find a way to heal
Yeah.
themselves, or initiate the beginning of their healing journey as well, and know that there's no shame in being able to look at this and heal.
Yeah. And that healing is possible, right?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Anything is possible.
Yeah.
Thank you, Antonia, for this opportunity to, yeah. And I reckon part two, maybe, see what happens, eh?
Yes. No, we've got it. Go
We could do
rolling.
a
We'll do a series.
diving deep.
Diving deep with Tracy. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Tracy. And
Thank you.
looking forward to part two.
Yeah, me too. Blessings. Thank you for listening. Head over to Instagram and tell me what's resonated for you with this episode. You'll find me at tracy.cartwright. That's Tracy with no E, .cartwright. Or head over to my website, tracycartwright.co.nz, and receive a free audio with the gift from your ancestors. So until next time, be kind to yourself and have fun doing it.